Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Planet Harriers, released in 2000 for the Sega Hikaru hardware. And here's our little Sega logo here, which if you want to see the full intros in attract mode, just check out the other video that I posted online because it shows the full intros and attract mode and everything, so you can see them in their entirety. But basically, what the Hikaru hardware is like is it's basically a Dreamcast, but it has some extra processors and extra memory and a custom GPU. Which, I know a lot of people say that this would be a direct port on the Dreamcast, but the biggest problem would be is that it uses a custom GPU that the Dreamcast does not have. So, you probably would have to scale the stuff down, especially in this final stage. Because the final stage really, everything goes into overdrive. And now the way control works in this, if you did not see the video that I had posted with the intros, is of course your joysticks make you go up and down, left and right, but if you move the joystick really quick to the left or to the right, you will do a quick turn. You'll see my character do that a few times in the video because it's a good way to dodge. And now this little thing here has a bomb in it. And I will warn you that what you're seeing here is one of my first gameplays, especially the first gameplay for a few of the levels. I've actually gotten through stages 1 and 2 a few times, so I'm not too bad at them. Although, one thing I will say is, other than that segment that you just saw where I was running and I went into that place where there was all those coins, I have not really found any, useful times for doing running in this game. It looks kind of cool, but it really serves no purpose in my opinion. And one thing you will notice if you actually play this game is it gets really loud when all the bullets and everything are exploding. So that's one thing you want to be careful of. And here's the Star Shop. This is where you buy things.
What can I do for you?
And now you see there's a few things that I can get here, like lock-on fuel just allows you to lock onto more characters at a time. Of course, life repair gives you a heart back.
Hi. Good luck.
And the life case actually gives you, like, another heart container if you're quoting Legend of Zelda. So if you saw there, I was able to lock onto more enemies than I could before I got the extra lock-on fuel. And through the whole game, you're actually able to get more lock-on fuel, which is pretty cool. And one thing that is cool that I will explore in another video is there's actually a debug code for this game, and there are additional levels that you can access, which were really never meant to be played, so what I'd imagine they're probably fairly boring and there's probably nothing in them, but it's one of those things that's really cool when there's an arcade game and you actually can do some extra things in it which were not meant to be done. And now, the way that the control panel's set up, I'm sure I'll go over this in another video, but I figure I might as well mention this. The joystick is for moving, of course. Then your top button is for locking on. You'll notice how my character locks on like that. And that causes a missile to be shot once you let go. And then your trigger, which is underneath your joystick, you know, when you're holding your joystick, it'll be like your index finger. That just does your normal machine gun type blasts, which you only get money if you do lock-on shots. So you'll notice if I do a lot of lock-on shots, there's these little bags and stuff that come at me, and these little money and coins that I get. You'll only actually get that, like, bonus, if you will, if you do the lock-on shots. And some of these situations where there's so many enemies at once, really the lock-on shots are the only way you're going to be able to, deal with all these enemies at once on screen. And those little boxes there that you see me shooting, those will get you extra items. And now here comes the boss. Now this is your classic, like, multi-headed dragon boss, so, I know if you've watched any anime or played any video games, you'll probably, like, see similarities between this and many of the other dragons that you've faced before. I'd have to say, of course, of all the bosses, this is probably one of the easier ones, and if you see what I'm doing here, this is probably the best strategy. Just more or less get as far away from the dragon as you can, so you have as much time possible to dodge the projectiles, especially with your quick turns. If you move your joystick really fast and do your quick turns, then this enemy probably won't be as big of a deal as if you were right on top of it. Which is one of those things I really like about this game, is you don't actually have like an altitude you have to travel at in a lot of levels. You can be fairly far away from the enemy, and the game allows you to do that, which is pretty cool. And now those like gold brick things, like if it's a pile of gold bricks, that's pretty much the highest gold you can get, I think, in the game. And then there's one that's just like a gold brick. And then there's like the various bags, and then there's the coins. I think I don't know if the silver coins give you more than the gold coins, or if you get less, because I really haven't noticed. And that's one thing I will warn you of. I will die a decent amount of times in this playthrough, because, as I said, a lot of levels I'm actually playing here, other than Stage 1 and Stage 2, it's my first time actually getting through them. So it will take me a little bit to get through them. But I just wanted to give you some cool... I just wanted to give you some cool playthrough off of the original arcade board without any emulation problems. And here's our store again.
Hello. How are you?
Now it's a different character that's in it.
Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Stage 2, Wario.
And now that's one thing I will warn you, if you actually have an original arcade machine, or a control panel like I do, make sure you calibrate the joystick before you play this game, because when I first got this and I tried playing the game, when I was on any of the menus, be it the character selection screen or the store, I couldn't go down. I was pushing the joystick down as hard as I possibly could, and nothing happened. So if I was in the store, I couldn't buy any of the items that were not on the top row, and I could not select the fourth character who's on the bottom there. But, yeah, that's one thing to make sure of with this game, or really any game with an analog joystick, is always make sure you configure your analog joystick and calibrate it so it is working properly. Because if I had not cut off the little chunk in the beginning of this video, you would have seen, like, I went into the game a few times noticing I couldn't do, like, the quick turns and everything. And then I had to go and calibrate it, try it again, calibrate it again, try it again, but now the calibration in the game actually is right, so it should work without a problem. And of course, if I have to calibrate it again, it's really no big deal. Now this is a very classic forest level. And that's one thing that's really cool about this game. One thing that the graphics get a compliment from everybody all the time is that the draw distance is really far in this. Like, if you look right now, you'll see how far that you can see. That's probably one department that the game would suffer if it had to be ported to Dreamcast, due to the increased graphical capabilities of the Hikaru. They probably would lose a bit of the draw distance. They might have done like a fog thing, but you know, we could probably split hairs forever on what it would have looked like if they'd ported it to Dreamcast. But unfortunately, Sega never ported Planet Harriers to any game consoles. Or, no late releases either, so other than playing it on an emulator or getting the original arcade hardware like I have here, there is actually no other way of playing this game. And that's really a shame that this game never got any ports at all. From what I understand, the biggest chance it ever had was shortly after becoming third party, Sega was considering a GameCube port of this game, but just like the proposed Dreamcast port, which I can honestly tell you, I'm not sure if there was any like truth to that or if people were just assuming Dreamcast, but it did not come to fruition at all. And now if you want to know how the Hikaru stacks up when it comes to like graphics power, from what I've read and what I've looked at the specs, it falls between Naomi and Naomi 2. Now don't get me wrong, I wouldn't doubt if you really pushed Hikaru to its limits, it would probably rival some of the stuff that Naomi 2 has, but Naomi 2 has like a faster... Okay, I was just gonna say there, Naomi 2 has a faster polygon fill rate and a more polygons per second rate, but there are a lot of processing things that the Hikaru can actually do faster. Like I believe like some of its processors and some of its RAM is actually a little bit better. But Sega's biggest downfall when it came to designing this system is it was very expensive to actually make. So that's why only 6 games actually made it out for the Hikaru, which of course was Planet Harriers, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, then there was that NASCAR game, then there was, let me see what else, Air Tricks, let's see, NASCAR, Air Tricks, Star Wars, Planet Harriers, Brave Firefighters, and there might have been one other race game, but unfortunately it was one of those many hardwares that just never really got utilized all that well because of the overly expensive cost of it. But at least now being like 15 to 16 years later, depending on your regions. I believe from what I read, this came out in 2000 in Japan, and 2001 in America. So, it's been 15 to 16 years since this came out. And I can remember when I first did this, comparing this to the first battle with the dragon. This battle is a lot longer and a lot, like, I don't want to say hard, but kind of annoying, because the problem is Cycloba is constantly moving around here, and you have to find the eye to shoot at it, or of course you're not doing any damage. So it's not like shooting anything on the rest of it is really harming it at all. And yeah, one thing I definitely have to say is like these boss battles definitely feel very epic in my opinion. Especially the final boss battle, which you'll see a little bit later in this video.
Yeah!
Hi! What can I do for you?
And now you'll see that the shop person actually alternates between this guy and that girl.
Thank you. Good luck. Stage 3.
Which I'm not sure if that's something like random or anything, or if it just is supposed to happen like that, but that's what I've seen so far. And now this is the first of the stages. I played a little bit of this when I first got it, when, as I said, the control panel wasn't working properly. But I hadn't played all that much of this stage. And one thing I recommend of buying a lot of in the store if you don't want to be dying all the time is the heart containers. They actually are a very valuable thing to buy because they will actually prevent you from dying as fast. So, very important thing to actually get is the heart containers. I go as far as to say it's comparable to Legend of Zelda, where you would have the heart containers that you would get in the various places. And the cool part about the final boss in this game is that the boss is kind of an homage to Tetris, where it's this like multi-block enemy that yeah, this multi-block enemy that kind of looks kind of like Tetris blocks, if you will. I wouldn't go as far as to say it looks just like Tetris, but it's kind of cool that it can like change shapes and form different shapes, which you will see fairly soon. And now this is one of those parts of this stage that I found really difficult, was right here. Because you're basically in this very tight, confined space where you really can't move all that well. And there's all kinds of enemies shooting all kinds of projectiles at you, so you're liable to get hit at least a few times. And it's a lot better now that you get out of that like tight, confined space. Now, to run down some of the Hikaru board specifications, is there were the for the main CPUs we have the two Hitachi SH4 128-bit RISC CPUs with graphic functions running at 200 megahertz with a combined capability of 1.4 gigaflops. Of course, on this system, unlike the Naomi or Naomi 2, it runs the Sega Custom 3D graphics engine, which is something unlike the other two. Now here's our shop again.
Watch out!
Welcome. Which one do you like?
And now you'll see there's a different item here, which is the twin shot, which I believe I actually pick up here. There was actually one more shot upgrade that I didn't actually pick up, which was the, which was some kind of laser shot, but I'm sure I'll pick that up in some other playthroughs. But as I was saying, the sound engine is composed of two ARM7 Yamaha AICA processors running at 45 megahertz, which is capable of 64-channel 80 PCM. You have a main memory of 64 megabytes, 28 megabytes of graphics memory, and then a 8 megabyte sound memory. Of course, you have your ROM media board, which actually runs the game, which has a maximum of 352 megabytes. And now this is another silly thing that people always tend to say back in the day about computers, but there is a maximum of 16,770,000 colors, which is 24 bits. It runs at both 24 kilohertz, which is 496 by 384, and 31 kilohertz, which is 640 by 480, which is what I had the game running on for this footage, because with this resolution, you can actually just connect the Hikaru, Naomi 2, or 246, 256 systems directly to a computer monitor without having to have a video converter board. I only need to use the video converter board when I actually capture this because... Oh, here comes the boss. Now, what I was saying is I only have to use a video converter board when I capture this because the Game Capture HD needs something running at 720p in order to be able to sync on it. Now, the board is capable of 2 million polygons per shading, and it can do Phong shading, which is something to do with how the lighting is done on different polygons and textures. All different kinds of lighting techniques: horizontal, spotlighting, 1024 lights per scene, 4 lights per polygon, and 8 window surfaces. Of course, you got your Phong shading, your fog, your depth cueing, which is very useful in this game because it uses a lot of depth of field. Stencil, shadow, motion blur. Other capabilities include 2 layers of bitmap, of course the calendar to keep the date, and certain games can actually run on dual monitors. I don't believe this is one of them, as the games were created to work on only one monitor. And you can include a 4-channel audio board, which is this game actually has one, as well as the communication board on board, which this game has as well. So you can link 2 of the Hikaru boards together and have a 2-player game. And I remember when I was first facing this boss, this was something that was like over the top, and I was like, wow, this is really a crazy boss battle. And as I was saying about the whole, and of course, if I didn't mention it already in any of my other videos, this game runs off of what's called JVS, or JAMA Video Standard, which is the 2 plugs for power, the USB connection for the I/O board, which this is the Sega JVS I/O board Type 1 that this runs off of, that I had received when I got this game in the mail.
Go to the next stage.
And of course there are... And of course there are 4 connections for audio on the front of the system for the 2 option speakers.
What can I do for you?
So you could have your surround sound. Which, one of these days I'm gonna have to try that and see what it sounds like if I can get an extra set of speakers and hook them up as the rears. And now my only guess is that Lifesaver is something that would bring you back to life after you die.
Stage 4. Cavern.
And now, as I had said earlier, this is what the trivia says for the history, is that this board was totally custom and very expensive to produce. It was really only designed for one game, which was Brave Firefighters, because it could do the complex fire and water graphics. And of course, as I'd mentioned, there would eventually only be 6 games made for the system before it was dropped in favor of the much cheaper Naomi 2 system. But yeah, I definitely have to say, if you're not convinced already, but Planet Harriers is an excellent game. It's really fun, and I will be probably making more gameplays of this in the future, because it's one of those games, if you've seen, there's a few places where I can actually go down different paths. So I kind of want to try taking some different ways. And the cool part is this level even features like an underwater area as well, which is really crazy. And it gets really fast and furious. All the stuff that's happening at once, which is why a lot of people at the time said maybe Dreamcast wouldn't be able to do this. And if you ever see that that first aid kit thing, make sure you shoot it, because that is that's life repair, and that will actually give you a heart back. So it's not something you really want to miss. But on when I do more gameplays of this, I will probably end up trying to buy more hearts to see if I can like die a little bit less. Because, you know, that would be a little bit nice if I could die a little bit less in this game. And that's one thing to watch out is for these orbs that these enemies shoot. They can be kind of crazy. And now here's your underwater segment. I guess your character really doesn't need to breathe. And now kill these starfish as quickly as you can, or they will do that to you. Which I didn't realize until more or less I got, like, massacred by all of them. But, you know, it's one of those things when you're able to look back at this footage and think, well, I should have done that, or I should have done that. And some of these enemies, if you see them, like the ones like this that, like, shoot right at you, if they're coming at you, it's sometimes better to dodge than to try to shoot them, because they're going so fast, you're never going to shoot them in time. And then, of course, after this one, we have the fifth, and what I would like to call the most difficult stage in the game, because I know in one part, there's so much stuff coming at you at any given time that it just seems crazy, if you ask me. Because in the one corridor that I was in Stage 5, I'll mention it when I get there, but there was so much stuff coming at me, I could honestly tell you I didn't know what was going on. And now these things that you're seeing here that shoot the lasers, I'd say are almost as bad as those starfish. But at least you can actually dodge the laser beam, so it's not that bad. And now one thing, if you're wondering, the VR buttons on the control panel, other than entering some of the codes, like to enter the debug mode, they're used for changing the view in the game. You can actually have a first-person view, which I may at some point make a video of the game running in first-person. But it's really cool that they give you all these little options. And of course, that big button to the left of the joystick, which will light up when you have bombs, is for the bombs. Which is one thing I probably underutilized a lot during this gameplay. But, you know, it being my first major time in the game, it's not surprising that I wouldn't use a certain feature. Now here comes the boss. Now this one is really a complicated one. From what I understand now, you'll see that there are several different colors. What you're trying to do is destroy the one of the color that's the big bar on the top, because the problem is unless you do that within a certain amount of time, he can fully regenerate any of the colors he wants. But if you destroy the one that is the top bar, it will destroy that actual little colory thing, and he can't attack you as much then. But I can honestly tell you, when I was doing this, I had no idea about that at all. That's why I believe I go through all three bombs while I'm fighting this boss. But it's not one of those things, like a lot of these games that, since it was arcade only, and there was no way to play this at home other than, of course, lately there have been emulators that run this game. But the strategies for this stuff is not like as much common knowledge as, say, the Guard Scorpion from Final Fantasy VII, because everyone has that game and has played that. And I remember after shooting for a bit here, I was thinking to myself, how do I defeat this thing? It just seems like it just keeps regenerating no matter what I do. Because, yeah, as you can see there, it will whack you with its colored tentacles, which is supposed to be like a starfish, but to me it looks like a mixture between like a starfish and a squid. Because it has that, the way that it moves kind of looks like a squid. I think after a while here, I just shoot it with the bomb. Because as you've seen here, I've died twice, and I haven't really gotten any further in the battle. And there was my bomb. I blasted the purple one, and then I was able to kill the blue one. And then there was another bomb, which got rid of the green one. And that's one thing that I have to say about this game, is sometimes the sound effects get so noisy in this game that you really can't even hear the music all that much. Because really there's just so much going on with the sound. And now for the last two colors here. So I think I still, there we go, now we destroyed that. But yeah, if you're playing this game for any reason and you don't know how to defeat the boss, you have to take out the colors for the biggest one on the top. And then, of course, it becomes just a regular starfish that you have to beat. So, at this point, it's not too bad. Except it shoots a lot of stuff at you. And you have to hit it without getting hit, of course. And as you can see, this can be really hectic. And there goes that boss, finally. And now, when I first started playing this game, I thought that her going "yeah" or "piece of cake"
Hello.
depended on like how well you played the game, but it had nothing to do with how you played the game. So, see, like there's the laser, and I didn't end up getting that.
Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Final stage. Relax. Get ready.
And that's the only thing that's slightly disappointing about this game, since there are only 5 stages, but with how packed the levels are with different enemies and everything, I could honestly say all the times I've played through some of the levels, it never felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again. And each character kind of adds a different dynamic to the gameplay a little bit. So it's really a cool experience every time. And now there are some segments of this level where there's so much going on at once that it's hard to even keep up with. So what I found myself doing when I got to the specific segments of the game is I was just holding down the trigger and just constantly like pressing and releasing the lock-on button, because that's the only way you could play it when the game goes into like, I would only describe it as hyperspace mode. It just goes so crazy fast at one point. And this is one of those levels that you get a little claustrophobic. Oh, here's our hyperspace mode. You'll notice how fast it's starting to go now. And that's one thing about this this game and this hardware, how fast it can really process everything at once. You can almost hardly see the background with how fast it's going, and all the stuff that's going on at once now. If I recall correctly, when I was actually in the debug menu, there were like 10 levels or so, I think. Oh, and then here's our star shop once again.
Hi! What can I do for you?
And the good thing is when you get another life case is it's always filled. It's not like some of the games where you expand your life bar and it's still the same as it was. You just add another empty container at the end. And especially if you're a fan of shoot 'em ups or shmups, if you will, this is a very fun game to play for that. And now, at least on my control panel, it actually has one credit. Yeah, one game is 4 quarters. So if you actually found this in the arcade, if it was set like the default, probably, I'd imagine this is probably the default American setting, because it actually says 4x 25 cents. Then that's how much you'd have to pay per game and per credit. But if I recall correctly, when I was looking in the test mode, there actually was the ability to set like discounts for continuing, so you could have like $1 to start, maybe 50 cents per continue, or a quarter per continue. And as I said, especially in this last level, don't be shocked if I die a lot here. But also, of course, there's the ability to set 1 coin, 1 credit. So if you really wanted to, you can set up your Planet Harriers arcade cabinet to only run on a quarter per play, instead of 4 quarters per credit per play. Now this part here is kind of like a mini boss battle where you have to destroy these enemies here, and they actually have their own life meter, as you see on the right. Which at first I was thinking to myself, wait, is this the boss? And I was like, no, the boss was supposed to be like a Tetris homage with blocks and stuff, and so this doesn't look like that. And that's another reason why I said you really should get a lot of those heart cases, those life cases, because there are a lot of enemies, especially in the last level, that can take out 2, maybe 3 hearts. So if you didn't bother investing much in those, you're not going to really have an easy time, and especially if you're playing this on a real cabinet, you're going to be spending a fortune on credits if you don't get those heart cases. Now, from what I could tell, some of the emulators actually emulate this game pretty close to perfectly. I know I'd run it on DMUL yesterday, and like going between scenes, it was a little bit sluggish, and when it had to load like a lot of graphics data all at once, it kind of like shuddered a little bit, whereas, as you can see, running on the real hardware, that doesn't happen. And another thing I noticed is I saw somebody had a video of this running on one of the emulators. I'm guessing it was the graphics plugin and not the computer, but none of the actual text actually was rendered. So when it went into that like how to play mode, where it would say to move up, press up, all that stuff was just missing. So you probably have to be careful what graphics plugin you're actually using for this game, or it's not going to show up right. But I guess that really goes for any game. And now when I first saw this area and I saw that like globe there, I was like thinking, is this a reference to the Death Star? Because that's what it makes me think of. It looks like a hollowed out Death Star from Star Wars. And it was really cool before that whole spaceship part, there was those green enemies from the first level again, for like no adequately explored reason. They just randomly showed up. Now if you're wondering, at first I thought the big globe was an enemy, that's why I was shooting at it so much, but it turns out it wasn't. And yeah, there's a lot of times where you basically have to know the pattern so you can avoid a lot of this stuff, which I can honestly say is not easy. Not easy at all. As you see, I get hit quite a bit in this game, so I'm not even going to excuse that. It's one of those things I've noticed at playing it a little bit more, I've gotten better at certain things, but you know how it goes. When you first start out with the game, you're not going to be as good as, say, if you have been a veteran and playing it for years, but I can honestly tell you, I've never seen this game on location anywhere at all. And here comes the boss. Which, for some reason, the history.dat calls the boss Deadtress, but here it's shown as Deadly, which makes me think maybe they changed it because of a copyright thing. Because we have the history.dat says the final boss is called Deadtress, but it's Deadly here. And the cool part is, like, watch the little thing under the life meter. As it changes shape, the name changes. And it will assume different shapes as it loses blocks. So, it can only do certain shapes when it has a certain number of blocks. So look on the side of the life bar. You'll notice that it shows how many blocks it has. And that determines what shapes it can form. Including my favorite there, Dreamcast, which is actually the Dreamcast logo. And I wouldn't have been surprised if at the time Sega actually had planned a Dreamcast version of this game. But then again, even if they hadn't, the reason why Dreamcast is there is they're just referencing their own console, so, you know, they're gonna wanna make mention of their things. And you'll notice as it gets smaller, the shapes that it can make are actually simpler, because it doesn't have as many blocks to make them. So it really has to change what shapes it's making. And no matter what shapes it's making, it's still pretty deadly, as the name would make you think. I think now it's down to like 40-some blocks, and that's doing an anchor. But if you notice, like at the beginning there, it did some really big shapes. I thought that one was kind of funny that it had done, which said emergency exit. And now you'll see the guitar. Although I think before the guitar did was what do you call it? Electric guitar. It's a little bit different. Alien. Dragonfly. You'll notice that now it's losing shapes. It's getting a lot simpler shapes. And yeah, as I said, this boss can be really brutal, as some of its hits can really take a lot of health out. And now you notice it's down the really small sizes. You can do like male and female logos. So now it's like really doing some simplistic things, if you will. Spectacles. Just imagine if you had to say that you just got killed by a giant pair of spectacles. And the funny thing is that one before, the percent sign, I didn't even notice that when I was actually playing this. And there's the dumbbell. But it's definitely a really cool boss and a really fun boss to fight. Arrow. Exclamation point. And I know when it gets down to 1, it says die. And then there's the lighter. So whoever actually made this boss, I have to give them credit because this is extremely creative, the way that, the shapes that it did. And now it's just a die, or one dice, because it only had one cube left.
Game cleared.
And honestly, I was surprised that boss didn't take longer, because I thought it would.
Piece of cake!
And as I said earlier, those two phrases she said, she just interchanges, piece of cake and, yeah, when she just goes, yeah. And now, one thing I will point out in the credit sequence, toward the end, you're actually going to see Spike from Spike Out. I honestly have no idea why he shows up in the ending credits at this point, but it's kind of a cool cameo, if you ask me. But yeah, Planet Harriers is a really fun game, really frantic and crazy, because you have to be dodging all these things. And I know when I first got into this, I was thinking, wait, can I move the character now, or is this just like an automated thing? Which, as you can see, it's just the credit sequence. But yeah, really fun game, very highly recommended. Either find an arcade cabinet, find the arcade board like I have, or play this on an emulator. I really would highly recommend it, but the only thing I think would be lacking is if you didn't have the proper analog stick to play this, because it really plays well. And for some reason, there's Spike from Spike Out. I have no idea why he's here at all. And this has been another Game Nexus arcade video, and I shall see you later. Bye.
Game over. Thank you for playing.